Hi, Dr. Eddie. You sent me a sneak preview. So we're talking about inner child activation process. Please tell us more.
Hello to you too, Tammy. Good to see you. No, yes, it is good to see you. It's been a while since we've seen it. Good to see you folks who are here joining us live. And for those of you who will be, listening and watching this after it gets posted. Yeah, dude, I did. I wanted to talk a little bit about the inner child activation process because it's been coming up quite a bit lately and talking with clients and in talking to groups. And I just want to go back over some of the not just the basics of what maybe some of you know already, but even some other insight that I've been, noodling around that I think really explain more about the whole process of what goes on with us, those of us who struggle with an addictive brain and a compulsive disorder. So, we start off with the whole process again, where what's going on here? Well, we start with the whole idea of core emotional triggers. And again, I'm not talking about environmental triggers. I'm not talking about visual triggers. I am talking about the core emotional triggers. And the reason for that is that and not to minimize the others, but I still believe, and I don't think I'll ever change this theory I have, but that it is our emotional triggers that represent the biggest challenge for us. Because in many cases, okay, a visual trigger I can see, an environmental I can sense. Emotional one, we're not really good at always picking them up. And therefore we allow them to just, grow or just, to linger around and therefore intensify if we continue, going through this activation process. So those core emotional triggers, what do they ultimately do? Well, they activate one, our amygdala, and two, they activate the reward center in our brain. And again, same area that we're talking about with that, the limbic system, but the reward center that we have, that over time you continue to repeat a behavior and there's this level of excitement that comes with it. You think about, a child, you put them in a candy store and the reward center just, ignites. Why? It's the smell, it's the sight, the different colors, the anticipation of taste that happens. And it's the same thing here with us. But when that goes on, what then happens is the activity in our prefrontal cortex is limited. It slows down. Why does that happen? Well, because this part of the brain has become activated, it needs more blood. And so therefore blood flows backwards to supply the reward center of the brain, and it's taking it away from the prefrontal cortex. Therefore, rational thinking is now limited. Judgment is clouded. We're not thinking that way. And again, go back to the kid in the candy store. It's like, oh, I want that. I want this. I want that. I want that. Not understanding that, oh, you know what? I think I should really just, limit my choices because too much of this sugar is not going to be good for me overall, from a weight standpoint, from what it does to my teeth, and also what it does in the way of, creating a level of stimulation. So all that thinking is gone. We're not thinking about any of that. It's just the idea of we want what we want at that point. So if you look at that and you go to and you wonder, okay, what are we doing here? What should we do? How do you manage the addictive process and the compulsiveness that comes with that, which again ultimately lead to poor decision making? What do we do? Well, based on what I just laid out for you, what I need to do is I need to prevent my prefrontal cortex from slowing down. I need to keep this activated. And managing our inner child's fears allows us to keep the prefrontal cortex online. So give you a real basic, simple example. You know, you're driving, pulling into a parking lot, you know, at a store or mall or whatever, and your wife says, "Oh, don't park there, park over here." You know, and so what's going on there? Okay, well, maybe I'm hypersensitive and I think I'm being criticized because I feel like this is a good parking space. And she's saying, no, 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 we need to park over there. Well, you know what? The thing is, my kid, my inner child, doesn't only hear my wife's voice, who's asking perhaps maybe for a valid reason. Perhaps her back hurts and she wants to move closer to the store. Or maybe there's a pending threat of rain and she doesn't want us getting caught, you know, in the rain when we go back to the car. I'm not hearing just that voice at the moment. My kid is hearing the voices of other people from the past who criticized, but didn't really have good intentions in their criticism. You know, let's say it's helping my stepfather. You know, he asked me to help him. You know, he's changing, you know, a piece in the sink. He's fixing the sink, and he told me to get him a tool. I go and I grab it and I hand it to him, and it's the wrong tool. And he turns, he goes, "You know, what's the matter with you? Are you stupid? This is not what I asked for." Okay, and then kind of pushes me aside and goes in there. He grabs it. Goes, "This is what I wanted." He goes, "You know what? Learn." And then goes back to work. Okay, and think about how I feel at that time. I must feel stupid. I must feel inadequate, incompetent. That, you know, therefore, instead of him saying, "Wait a second, that's not what I needed. Here, wait, let me come out for a moment and let me show you what I was looking for." Go through the tools, say, "This is what I needed." As you can see, it's very different. And let me even show you maybe for a moment how they different and what are the different uses for these tools. All right, now I'm learning something. There's a sense of curiosity that builds in me. But his reaction, which is a reaction many of us have many times, sometimes during the course of the day with different people, is that he is so focused on, "I need to fix this, I need to get this done." That's the only thing he's focusing on. So therefore, you know, goes to get the tool, this isn't it. And it's like, "You're slowing me down. You're slowing me down. This is not what I want. I need somebody who can be helping me. You're not helping me. You're just being a nuisance. You're being a pain." That message, or that's what your kid is hearing when the wife says, "Don't park here, park there." And you don't know that. You don't realize that he's hearing, you know, a different voice. All you know is that your mood has changed. It has shifted. Okay. And that process can happen numerous times during the course of the day. And all it has to do is happen once, because what it does then sets the tonality. Because now, you know, okay, criticized, maybe I don't answer, I don't say anything, I go park the car where she wants it. Okay. But an attitude has developed within me. And at some point, I'm going to want to do something to, you know, fix that attitude, to get rid of it. And in the case of people who deal with problematic sexual behaviors, could be when you get home, you know, maybe looking at porn. It could be even the fact that, you know, she goes in the store and you say, "You know what, I'm going to go sit out in the car," and go out in the car and do it. Because again, I just need to get rid of this attitude, that these feelings that I have. And this is what goes on. And we need to be very, very aware of it. And that's the key. Key is awareness. So what are we trying to be aware of? Well, there's several things. One, what does trigger you? Is it feeling alone? Is it being told that you're wrong? Is it feeling inadequate? Is it feeling like I've been cheated out of something, that I've been dismissed? I have no voice. I mean, you go on and on. There are hundreds of emotional triggers that alter your mood. And that's what we're talking about. Your mood becomes altered. And when that happens, that increases the likelihood of making poor decisions. So one, I need to know what does trigger me. And that again, any of you have been through the inner child process, you know that is the core. That's what we're looking for. It's not even identifying which of these 11 kids, in case any of you don't know, we have 2 more that we've adopted. The enmeshed child and the spiritually wounded child that's coming into this, that will be launched in the fall with the 2nd edition of the book. But we need to know the core emotional triggers that are the most critical aspect of it. Also, you need to know what are your thoughts, emotions, and your body telling you. Well, the emotions we talked about, because those are the triggers, but the noise in your head, the thoughts in your head need to be able to, at some point, quiet those down. The quicker you can calm those down, the less activated your inner child gets. The quicker you can identify your core emotional trigger, the less activated your child gets. The more you can recognize what's going on physically with me. For example, some people who, when they start, their kid gets triggered, they become restless. Okay, like Tammy, sitting on the beach, says, I can't sit on the beach. I got to be up and running and walking all over the place. Okay. Maybe it's the fact that, that you feel a lot of tension in your body that's there. What do you feel when your child gets activated? And this is something that you need to, again, start to look at, evaluate, write it down so that you become extremely aware of what's going on. And the other idea, we talk about quite often, let's go back to the emotion. Okay, we talked about the triggers. All right, I know I got these triggers, they're all here. These are my emotions. Okay, this is what I feel. This is what I feel, what my kid feels. But now, so I can figure out, wait a second, what should I really be feeling? What is from the past versus what is from today? Big difference. Okay, because the kid's bringing all this stuff in from the past, all the emotions that seem to be to match the event that just happened. Wife telling you, park over here. He's bringing in all these different things that he's saying, oh, remember this happened, that happened, this happened. And it's all to him very similar. So how do I break those two worlds apart? I have to sit with, okay, what he feels, and then again, slowing everything down, move over to what is real. Now I can sit and I can process. Okay. Is she just trying to be annoying? I mean, is she that controlling that she wants to dictate where I put the car? No, you know what? That doesn't make any sense. Oh, you know what? She did mention how her back was bothering her earlier today. That's why she wants me to move. Or maybe she's looking at how dark it is and, she doesn't want to get caught in the rain coming out. Or maybe if I can't figure it out, maybe I should just go to the source and be curious and say, you know what, I was going to park here. You'd like me to park over there. Can you tell me why you prefer that? And then hear directly from her. And I doubt you're going to get the answer of, well, I just wanted to decide where we should park. I don't think that's what you're going to hear. You're going to hear a rationale, like maybe, you know what, that other car that you're parking next to, it looks all banged up and beat up, and I'm just afraid they're going to slam their door into our door and not even consider it. And so it's like, all right, figure it out. What is really going on by asking about it? All of these, we need to, again, understand, you know, what is our body going through when our kids start to get triggered? What is our mind experiencing when our kid gets triggered? What are the emotions that we are going through when our kid gets triggered? Awareness. And again, what's one of the biggest problems that we have with this, Tammy, is that this is not natural for people who deal with addiction. To slow down, to be able to think it through, to be able to, you know, process all of it. We're just reactive. We're just always reactive, and we need to stop being reactive. This is what true recovery becomes. It becomes doing everything differently. And yes, it's hard. I know it's hard because I hear from my wife a couple of times a week, you're not doing that right. You're not getting that right. And I have to, you know what, you're right, I'm not, because it's not natural. You know, I'm shooting for a 700 batting average, 7 out of 10. That's what I'm shooting for. Okay. If I can get that, I'm pretty good. And I usually am. And maybe I get higher in a particular week. I don't want to go beyond that, but go below that. And so Tammy, that's what I got for you this week.
Good stuff as always. I was thinking, you know, with the example of, you know, like the parking, and I feel resentful, I feel justified in acting out, when whether it's porn or I go into the store and I'm, you know, I'm objectifying other people, and I'm, you know, but it's that I feel justified, you know, I feel resentful, and therefore I feel justified, you know, to take care of me, and in a harmful way. I mean, it really is hurtful, and it keeps me distanced from other people. So I, you know, like understanding what the feelings are, which you know, addicts suck at that. Like, you know, we've suppressed and avoided all feelings for so long. So initially, just learning what a feeling is, you know, is challenging, and feeling them is challenging. So this is like, okay, I have to learn what my feelings are. I have to be able to identify what they are, and it's a process. And you know, and you won't get it right 100%. You know, like the 700 batting average is like, you know, okay, you're making progress if you're, you know, identifying you're identifying that you're having a feeling, and then you identify what the feeling is. Like, that's huge growth, you know, you know, for an addict. So I love that you were talking about being curious, you know, asking, you know, why. I live in Arizona. Like, we usually are looking for a parking spot in the shade, but you know, like we've had the conversation, oh, there's more shade over there, you know, like we're both on the radar for it. So it's understood, you know, that, you know, now my mother, bless her heart, if I'm visiting her, like she has her parking spaces. And so you go to the grocery store, I just ask now, I learned, I just say, you know, where would you like me to park? Because it takes away all of that, because otherwise, you know, I don't use right and wrong, but there are wrong parking spots at those grocery stores in Michigan. So it's just easier to say, you know, where would you like me to park? You know, and there's, you know, there's a bunch of them. There's no right or wrong, but there's,
That's called acceptance. I accept
yes,
the fact that,
yes,
you know what, the person next to me is a little bit controlling, such. So instead of fighting it, I instead go along with it. So where
yes.
should we park today?
And I shared that with my sister because she was struggling with the same thing. And I just went, you know, just ask her. Like don't even try to park. Just say, which parking spot would you like? And it just takes all the, I don't care. You know, it just, I don't care. So, so yeah. Oh, I wanted to share too, because you mentioned the new kids on the block, so to speak. But the spiritual abuse, we have a work group because there are lots of people who have been harmed by by rigid or whatever. So,
Mhm.
and it isn't just the people that were, touched inappropriately by, I mean,
Oh,
it's,
absolutely not.
yeah.
Right.
So there's lots of different ways. So we have a work group on the Seeking Integrity site, that Jason Swilling created the curriculum, but also teaches. And so that
Hmm.
can be really a helpful healing point, to explore that aspect. So consider that. So, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you have bunches of questions, so we're going to get to them. Okay, the first one, the betrayer who is in your class at this time is about to travel to spend 2 to 3 weeks with his son and daughter-in-law who are alcoholic in their group of all day, very heavy drinking friends to help around their new home. He is currently engaged in and enjoying your Seeking Integrity class and is in some betrayal recovery counseling, not with an addiction specialist. Is his living in an environment of addiction mindset and addictive behavior for a few weeks a concern with regard to his own progress and recovery? I feel, this is the betrayed partner, I feel concerned about the potential negative impact of his being steeped in an unhealthy environment at this delicate time. In the meantime, I'm working on my own healing and detaching from his choices as best I can. Thank you for asking this and sharing this. So, Dr. Eddie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it is. Again, I need a little bit more information. For example, how long have you been in his recovery? What had it been like? Had he been, pretty much smooth sailing, that he's gotten it correct? Two, how assertive is he in being able to put up his own boundaries about it? I mean, overall, I look at it and I say, I'm a little concerned. I'd be concerned, if I was you. Um, but again, he's a grown man. He's going to need to be, he's going to be in certain environments at some point doing something like this. The big question is, you know, is it too soon? And that can only be answered by, again, understanding more of the background as well as having the conversation with them. And also, what is the game plan? What is he going to be doing when he's out there to ensure that he doesn't get sucked into the lifestyle of, his son and daughter-in-law and their friends? Okay, he needs to be able to put together a very comprehensive and concise plan that shared with you, that he's sharing with his recovery team, sharing with his counselor, and what are the constant contact that he's going to be having with people during this 2 to 3 week period, because that's what needs to be done. Like, hey, you know what? It's 9 o'clock. They've all headed out somewhere. I'm back here at the house. I'm staying low, but reaching out to people. So again, if he's been in recovery for quite some time, he's done very well. He seemed to be on the right path. He feels like, I have to go do this. First and foremost, I would limit it to 2 instead of 3 weeks. That's for sure. Maybe even limit it to a shorter period of time if possible. But what really needed is, what is the game plan while I'm there?
And what is his exit plan? Because I always have
Oh,
if
absolutely.
I'm not in a safe environment, I'm out,
Yep.
so
Yep.
that is key for me. I love that you shared, I'm taking care of me, and it ultimately is, his choice. And, if he puts himself on a slippery slope, it will be a learning, experience for him. Hopefully he leans into the recovery things. I love what Dr. Eddie shared. I think that's exactly right. What is the plan? What is his daily, touching in, what is his connection to just unplug from recovery things for 2 to 3 weeks, and go into this very challenging environment would be frightening. And I was also thinking, I wonder how much work the son and daughter-in-law are going to get done if they're, heavy drinking all the time. So, I would not
Mm.
be the person doing most of the heavy lifting with the work either, but that's just me. So,
Yeah.
but the exit plan would be like, I would want to make sure if I'm if my I have a, I have a bottom line, like if my recovery is ever, in jeopardy, if I'm ever like, I leave, I walk out, I would walk out of anything, because I'm not willing to sacrifice that.
Right. And that's the sense that I would need to get from him in talking with him. Okay, you know what? You're putting yourself in, there's no doubt you're increasing your risk of something going wrong. Okay, that there's no doubt about that. There's no arguing over it. It's just a fact. What are you doing and how prepared are you to be in that environment? How again, mentally and emotionally, are you prepared? And again, to your point, what the game plan, especially when do I say, no, this is too much. I can't deal with this anymore. And I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah. That would, I, I've been in recovery a long time. There's no way I want to be around a bunch of drunks for
No,
a day, let alone weeks.
right,
So
right. And my guess is, he's thinking, oh, well, I'm going to go and do this to help them. But still, again, you're putting yourself in a situation that increases your risk.
So I heard spouse talking to his therapist who inferred that I was a bitch. He said to the spouse, I am not saying that Linda, not my name, is a bitch. I was very disturbed. Therapist later dismissed his remark, saying it was breach of confidentiality. I was fuming and offended. Spouses work with therapists over 5 years. Spouse has been very defensive and has been and feels very resentful towards me. Spouse does not seem to be on board with giving up this therapist who let his CSAT lapse. He can let spouse know that it is not an ultimatum, but his resentment kills our work our couple therapist is doing. Okay, that one's a little bit complicated, but it sounds like this person overheard part of the therapy session. Is that
Yes,
what you're getting?
therefore, right. And right. And the therapist is saying, hey, why, how are you hearing this stuff? Okay, that's a breach of confidentiality, which, you know what, I know that's not what you want to talk about here, but that is. And I've run into this problem.
I bet, yeah.
I've run into it, especially when we're doing like this virtual, and I do not like it and I do not accept it. And it is because there are times we need to just be candid and honest. And for him to say, and I'm not saying what he said was right, but for him to say, hey, look, I don't think she's a bitch. Maybe what he's doing is, again, reinforce what the client has said. Maybe your husband said, it seems like she's such a bitch. It's like, I don't think she's a bitch. I'm saying it back to him because I want him to understand. I want him to hear the depth of that word, the horror of that word, to say that. All right. Again, I'm not there. I don't know what it is, but I could see for myself, would I, say something like that? I could actually maybe say something like that. I don't think your wife's a bitch. I think your wife is very online with what she's worried and concerned about. I'm not referring to the woman that way. I'm referring to what his mindset is of it. But again, we don't know all the details, so I can't surmise. But here, what I hear you saying is, I think you want him to give up his therapist. And I don't understand what it means by who let his CSATs lap.
Well, I can add. So I know lots of people, the organization has shifted. They've gotten the training and then they do not continue on. So they've had the training and then they have chosen and it's not
certified again. He didn't get his certification.
Yeah, they didn't renew their certification. Okay. So, and there's still a lot of people that I refer to that have chosen that path. So it isn't, yeah, to me, that would not be a deal breaker. I guess to me, I'm also wondering, and what your thoughts are, Dr. Eddie, on, like it feels like the partner is saying this therapist isn't doing what I perceive my addict needs to have for therapy. Is that what you're feeling like?
That's a very different story. Again, so my question would be, so tell me, what have you seen in the way of changes from your spouse in the last 5 years? Are you seeing things that have changed? Or are you seeing things that are still the same? And if they haven't changed, what is it that has not? And then to say to your, your spouse, look, I would like to get into a session with your therapist to let him know these are some of the things I'm seeing that are concerning. Can you tell me what you think you may do here? That's completely appropriate. There's nothing wrong with it. So instead of, going back and forth with your spouse, trying to say, I don't like what's happening, instead say, look, I need you to set up a couples session, and maybe a few of them, a couple of them, so I can express what my concern and my fears are, because that's what it is. You are fearful that there's something that's just not being done here. So.
Well, and then I caught that you have a couples therapist. So so the coupleship is the client with a couples therapist, but hopefully your couples therapist has a release to speak to each of your individual therapists, so when there's a sticking point, having the professionals be able to talk and say, this is what's showing up in our couples session, and having more accountability around this would be helpful, or whatever, but having them be able to have the releases to talk, all three of them may, need to do that. But if it feels like you guys are stuck and there's some, but I really have to, like his session with his therapist, if he was going in person, you wouldn't be there and you wouldn't be able to listen in. I would ask you to honor, just like hopefully you are working with an individual therapist and that you are getting support and that nobody else is listening in on that either. So creating that safe boundary for each of you. But it's also, if there's an issue that you're not feeling safe with that, bring that up in your couples therapy. That would be, I'm struggling with this and I want to listen in, but I do support sessions and it's not therapy, but I have people go sit in their car. I don't blame them. I mean, that's a completely safe place and not overheard. So create safety.
I have discharged clients whose spouse is lingering in the background. I say, I can't do this. I'm not going to do it. So it's just not, there's no benefit from that. And what that really does, again, it continues to, build on your not trusting him.
Yeah, and then there's a tag on, but I don't know who it goes to, because we've done a couple of questions. So added here, been in recovery for 11 months, CSAT weekly groups, 2 fellowship sponsored and 1 working the steps. Great. But I don't know which, this is a lifelong process. You're very early in the process. Keep doing the work. So great. Okay. The next one, a year and 2 weeks ago, I went through a men's rite of passage and focused on deep dive into suppressed trauma and emotions. Long story short, I discovered I had been in denial with the sex addiction. I know you're not supposed to do trauma work in your first year. People come up with these, there's all these magic rules. So I'm sorry. I know this drives me nuts. It's like, I know you're not.
So what are you doing for a year? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're ignoring the main issue that drives the addiction, that drives you to not sit with your emotional pain.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
let me say this.
Yeah.
There are people who you can't just dive deep into.
Yes, we say that, but there's no magic time frame.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, usually within a month, 2 months, you can build this sense of this self that you can look at and say, you know what? I think I know what they can handle and they can't handle. And that's what you do. And you just gradually.
That's you as a professional. But you're getting a foundation first.
Yes.
Because I get calls all the time. People, I'm going to dive into my trauma. And once I figure out my trauma and you're going to be so triggered because you've got no foundation and no support. So you're just going to be acting out all over the place. So, but there's no magic switch that, now I've been in recovery a year, or the 90 days. I love this one too. That I'm not going to have sex for 90 days. And then my brain is going to magically rewire. No. there's time frames, and I use time frames, and I use them with great hesitation, because people get, okay, at 12 months this is going to happen, at 18 months, no, this is a guideline, and everybody's on their own journey. So but I don't see a question in here, so I'm gonna
So let's see,
yeah,
we
so
didn't finish reading it. So what does it say? All
well,
right,
it's all just
you can, that's when you and
so
I are meltdown. So
yeah, so this is, no, all I can say is it's thank you, my life is transformed as my marriage and my
okay.
parenting. So yeah, but there isn't a question, and we've got bunches of questions, so we're going to keep going. Okay, after doing my disclosure, my partner did a formal disclosure back. She shared that she had an ongoing emotional and sexual affair for more than 20 years ago with my then roommate. My mind has been flooding with the entire gamut of thoughts and emotions. How do I, as an SA, deal with the immense feeling of betrayal? Is it different for an SA?
No, it's not different. It's not different. I mean, you have the same emotions, and you're going to go through the same thing that she has gone through. A betrayal is a betrayal is a betrayal. Doesn't matter who's doing it or whatever. I will say this, while you are going through your own pain and your own discomfort with all of this, it helped to really develop that empathy muscle for what she must be going through also. So I would not, you can't, this is it's a delicate subject. I've seen this play out. I've seen it play out several times where something like this has happened, where now all of a sudden, okay, we have the person who's been betrayed, who've been the focus of, the attention of, okay, we need to, help her to heal and give her, but now all of a sudden it's like shifted. And in some cases, we see the fact of, yeah, but you know what? We can't forget about my betrayal. True, that is true. But now it becomes more of a balance because, there's the power differentiation that happens, right? Tammy, what goes on?
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully a couple like this, but then
Yeah.
You're the betrayed, you're the betrayer. Well, when something like this now happens, well, guess what? We're going here. We have to go here. But in doing this, it's not that we go here and we both just forget about it. No, we're not. Both of you who have betrayed have to be giving to the other. And that's where it has to be, while also accepting what the other person's giving you. So there, again, I would be definitely in couples counseling, but you need this a great deal, as well as continuing to do the individual counseling, especially for the one who just was, found out about the betrayal. But you need the couple work so that you can maintain this, because you could see it where sometimes it tries to go like that. That is not going to work. And if it stays here, it's not going to work. It has to try to come here, that balance of power, where again, and it's very hard, it's extremely difficult. I got to try to look outward to see, okay, your pain, and she has to look outward to see your pain. And it's almost like you're taking turns at times, but it can't be like all of a sudden you're having a grieving moment and she turns around and said, yeah, but you did it too.
Or did it worse? It's really easy to go, you were worse than me. You did more than me. It's like both of you are betrayed partners, and both of you, I love what you're saying about looking outward. And I think also looking at what is your goal. If it's to heal the relationship, then how do you continue to move it forward? I think couples, like you suggested, is really key to all this. But you're the delicate balance of, okay, we've both betrayed and we're both betrayed partners, and all of that's true. And how do we navigate what's going to be healing for each of us and the relationship, and owning that we cause pain and we have pain.
Right, but I say this, Jason, one thing that you have in there again is that you've been flooded again with gamut of thoughts and emotions. That's why you need to continue to do your individual counseling so that you can grieve, through that in that process. And even with your men's groups, whatever it is, you got to continue, you have to do that because this is again a raw wound that's there, but you can't lose that, you can't lose sight of the fact that she's still hurting. Okay, she's still hurting.
Yeah, and I think really lean into your recovery work, because part of that is helping you to identify, I mean, yeah, I hope you're doing some 12-step work. I think the fourth and fifth steps will really help you through this process and own what is yours to own. The other thing I was thinking too is, and your roommate, like it's always so difficult when there's another person that I mean, it's bad when it's in Vegas, but I think when there's that other person who also betrayed you, like your roommate, your friend, a family member, when there's a connection with something and two people held it, as secret, I think that can be a wound that really needs attending, is what I'll say. Okay, so next question. Hi, Eddie. This is all based on the assumption that the wife is causing the addict's triggers. What about the addict that keeps being antagonistic and displaying deceitful behavior that keeps the wife constantly triggered?
I brought that
Like,
up because I brought that up, that example. She's talking about the example with parking the car and such. I'm not sitting here and saying that wives cause all triggers for the betrayer. That is not true. It's not even close to being true. And in fact, you know what? I think, especially when I look at what with my model, most the triggers are coming from that kid. Okay, and the trigger, remember what I said? He hears the voice of the wife saying, "Park there." All right, and he perceiving criticism. But what really causes the problem? The kid going back in the path and pulling the voices of the other people. Because if he does the work to calm that noise down, to calm that kid down, the next time when she says, "Hey, you should park over there," why he may go immediately like, "Okay, I can park there." That's what this is about. That's what the whole inner child model is about. Is to understand the hidden triggers. We think we're being triggered by something, but what's really causing all the damage is what being brought into the circumstance by the kids looking back on past wounds. So that was not my intent. It is not what I'm saying. Yeah, does a wife sometimes trigger the betrayer? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, just like sometimes I'll trigger my wife. Right? It's gonna have, we trigger each other. We have different attachment styles, most likely, and we do trigger one another, but that's not an excuse for us to go and act out in a destructive manner. What we have to do when we trigger one another is to be able to take a step back, slow everything down, and talk about it. And say, you know what, you make me feel belittled when you do something like that. That wasn't what I wanted to do. That's not what I meant. The reason I said this was, oh, okay, I didn't realize that's what you were saying. We jump to assumptions. We've done a whole, show on that alone, how the assumptions that we jump to cause problems. So anyway, just to clarify there, it's not this idea that, oh, the wife is doing that. The guy who's deceitful, the guy keeps doing those behaviors, there's no use for that. There is absolutely zero excuse for that behavior. And that is somebody who is still in the addictive brain, even if he's not acting out, doing what he did before, but he's still got the addictive brain going on. That's a guy who's inwardly focused. That is a guy who's emotionally undeveloped. I can go through the whole list if you want, but we'll start another 30-minute segment here with that. That has to end. And if it's not ending, because that's what I assume you're saying, you may be dealing with that, then I'm saying, where are your boundaries? What are you doing? You know what? Pack your bag, go to, the extended stay for a few nights, or go to your parents' house, or go here, because I'm not dealing with this anymore. I'm not dealing with it. You have to see somebody show commitment. And and I almost did one today. It was about staying in your own lane, but it was going to be more about, what, if somebody's not showing commitment, the solution shouldn't be for you to try harder to change him or to get him to do what he has to do. That's not the solution, because you're not changing the heart. Even if he does, okay, I'll go read my book. Okay, I'll go to another meeting. What's he doing? Doing to placate, and doing to shut you up. Right, okay, you happy? I did that. You good? Instead, the solution is airtight boundaries. And the reason most people don't put up the airtight boundaries, it's because you're going to have to pull on it, and you're going to have to implement it, and you're scared, and you don't want to. That's the problem. So what happened? You get stuck, and you're just in the same kind of cycle he's in. You're just doing different things.
Yeah, I call that the negative two-step. You
Oh,
do this
that's
and I
nice.
do this. You do this and I do this, and then we just do the negative two-step. So it's a
That's nice. I
little
like it.
dance we do.
Very
And
sad, though, isn't it, Tammy? It's really sad.
it
To
is
watch,
sad and it's
watch
painful.
these
And
women who've been betrayed, who, you know what, they're just as stuck as he is in not doing his recovery. They're just as stuck. And
I
why?
think more stuck. I really
Oh, I
think it's
agree.
more stuck because you are stuck by someone else's behaviors, and so you are completely focused on and dependent on
Yeah.
him changing. So I feel like it's almost more stuck. And so when you're talking about being constantly triggered, 100% healthy boundaries. What, like, so that, like, it can be annoying, it can be whatever, and nobody can make me feel anything. People can try really hard, but I have to choose to engage with that. And the healthier boundaries I have, I can see how you want me to do whatever, or whatever, but I don't have to fall for that. I don't have to choose that. And somebody who is constantly triggered, that is so painful. And so what do you need to do so that, I talk about, I'm putting my Kevlar vest on. What do I need to do so that when you are doing those things, I can go, like you said, you pack your bags, or, you go do you, I'm taking care of me.
Yeah, and if you can't figure that out, go get help to figure it out.
Yes.
Why can't
Yes.
you adhere to boundaries? Why can't you stick with them? Why can't you make the decision? And in many cases, it's going to be that I'm afraid of being alone. Or I'm afraid if I send him out there, he's going to do something. Well, if he does it, then once again, he just demonstrated nothing different. What are you holding on to?
Mm-hmm.
What are you holding on to? Nothing except more pain. More pain. And again, I'm not an advocate for divorce. It's the last thing I want to do in any circumstance. But sometimes you don't pull the trigger, you're pulling the trigger on yourself, because you're going to be
Yes.
stuck and living in this muck forever. This anger, this frustration. I had a couple who had a major meltdown yesterday. Major meltdown, assault, all of it bad, right? Because they won't get out of the friggin' negative two-step. Nobody will pull the trigger to say, enough is enough. We can't do this anymore. You know what? We're going to take a break for a year, 2 years, whatever it is, and just let everything just slow down, die down, so that we can try to figure out what do we want in our lives.
Yeah. And people can, people can do that for decades. You can knowingly choose the negative two-step for 30 more years, but it's painful for both of you.
I refuse. My wife and I both refuse. We will no longer work with people who've been doing this for more than 5 years. Not doing it. Because again, we've done it, and we've worked with people who've done it for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, 30 years. You can't, you know what? you're not changing those people at that point. That woman has to make the decision that she's not going to continue being victimized. Michelle Mays, she wrote that amazing book recently, The Betrayal Bind. And in it, she outlines about 7 different factors of why women can't move forward. And they're all coping strategies. Most of them are subconscious. They don't even know they're there. And they're coping strategies. And it's all based on fear. They're fearful little girl who won't do something about it.
Well, and 2 things on this. One is, like, at some point, value
I'm
yourself.
upset right now. I'm really upset. I'm just emotional.
Well, yeah, but value yourself, because he isn't. He's being antagonistic and negative. But value yourself and go, wait, healthy boundaries are about your safety. It's not punitive against him. It's I value me, and therefore. One more thing: the betrayed partner work group started last week Wednesday, and we've added several people because we won't have it again until the end of August. But we talk about healthy boundaries, and how do you create them, but also how do you hold them in those tight moments when somebody's I said to somebody this weekend, I was like, the system will. The system doesn't want you to change. The system wants you to continue what you've been doing. So there will be resistance. So when you set up a boundary, the people that you are, not doing what they want you to do anymore, not continuing that negative 2-step, there will be resistance. Mm-hmm. But you will also go, this is empowering and I value me. And so yes, but ultimately it smooths things out, in the long run, or it's data. Like if he never is going to change, then lots of people stay in the relationship, but they have all their support systems set up over here. So what he does, it's mildly, annoying and whatever, but it doesn't rock their boat. It isn't constantly triggering. So those are my thoughts. Okay. Next one. Do you have any advice for the betrayed partner, inner child? Only today I have had these heavy sensations in my body, almost panic. In my case, the coward left me dealing with all the trauma and pain alone. So that means, that person bailed. So
yeah, I'm really sorry. I'm sorry that you're going through all of that. Yes, the whole idea, you have a broken little girl in you. You have a scared little girl who's crying out, especially if you've dealt with anything in the past that seemed to have trauma or neglect in it. It's only being magnified with all of it. Tell you, my wife actually uses the Going Deeper book to work with women, to betrayed partners. Mm-hmm. They just, ignore they don't ignore the cases, they're there, but they look at it from their point of view. It'd probably be a wonderful resource to create something that could be strictly for the betrayed partner. But
I see something for 2024 on your list. While you're sitting on the beach, you're gonna have this creative stuff. So just planting seeds.
Anyway, yes. I'm thinking of my workload.
So the inner child for betrayed partners. Sorry.
Yeah, I would. If the book is there, if you haven't read the book, I'd pick up a copy of it. Going Deeper: How the Inner Child Impacts Your Sexual Addiction, and again, use it for yourself. We have a book that's coming out later in fall, Going Deeper for Women. But again, that is for those women who are dealing with, love addiction and porn addiction. But we've identified the 10 little girls, and those pain points let me take a step back. Those kids, the 11 kids right now, they each have a unique emotional pain point. Somebody told me when I first wrote the book, you could take out the word sex addiction and you could put how my inner child impact my depression, my anxiety, my OCD, name it. And you can do that. You could use the book that way, because again, remember what I said to you? It is about those core emotional triggers. So therefore, going in, looking at each of these kids, looking at those pain points, and then processing through those, hopefully with a therapist, processing through the 11 Okay, these are the 6 that I deal with, that I had from the past, that are now being exacerbated by what I've gone through today. Process through the pain, be able to sit with it and deal with it in a healthy way, not one that overwhelms you, all right? And then be able to ultimately move on. That's what I would consider doing.
Yeah,
Anyway, my wife has had some really great success in using that book with women. So,
while he left you, you're not alone. I'm glad
right.
you're here, but lean into the resources. Some people are, as you heard a bit ago, in a relationship and they're still alone. So whether he's there or not, there's still healing, for you to do, but you're not alone. So
Right.
the next one is, we had separated for 9 months, and whenever he has an episode, we go no contact.
Good.
One of the things I hear, though, when I hear people separated, I always go, what is the plan? Like, what are the goals? Because here's what I often hear: we've been separated for 3 years, and but there's no plan for either.
Right.
As as Dr. Eddie said, divorce, if that's the case, or what are we looking to do so that we're moving forward, so that we're both on the same page with the plan. So I would encourage you to consider working with your qualified therapist to go, what is the plan, and what are the benchmarks that we're looking for,
Right.
or what is going to be the the
Right. If
deal
you go to
breaker
separation, there
yeah.
has to be a reason for the separation. And in many cases, that's because the wife just can't heal with him in the house, or he's continuing to act out in some way. So
Yes,
there,
which it sounds like, yeah.
but as you said, there are, these pillars along the way. Okay, what are we doing with these different steps? What are the constant contact that we're going to have? What's it going to look like, if any? You have to have all these different parameters. But again, what's the objective? Because, and again, I read a study not too long ago that said that, a large percentage of people who get separated, even if they come back together, most likely wind up divorced. Because the longer you stay separated, then it starts to become, you know what? I can live with this. I can live with it. And it becomes much more difficult to then, when you start to re-engage, and you have to be, you want to voice your concerns about things for somebody to take it, because they're saying, what the heck with this? I'm just going to go back out there. So,
So the last question.
Last question.
Yes. What are airtight boundaries? Can you give some examples of a good airtight boundary versus boundaries that are poorly constructed or incorrectly set up?
Yeah, an airtight boundary is one that I'm going to adhere to, period. That's what I mean by airtight. I'm going to carry it out. So therefore, okay, boundary, if you continue to come home late, because you told me you were going to be home at a certain time, and you continue to come home late, and you continue not to call me to, to do this, you know what? You got to go sleep in the other room for a week. And then after 2 nights, oh, I really miss you. Could I come and sleep in our bed again? All right. Do you promise that you're going to call from now on? Yes, I promise. Well, that's not an airtight boundary. All right. That's just a quick little example of it, but that's what it needs to be. So therefore, if the boundary is, if you do X, Y, or Z, if you lie to me again about something, you need to leave the house for X amount of time. And, he lies and, said, all right, you need to leave. Oh, you know what? We really can't afford it. That's not going to be a big problem. And I really know, but I can find and go into another room. Okay, I can, what I've done is I've learned to just manipulate you. If the little kid who, mom says, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And he keeps doing it because he knows mom is not serious until like number 5. When number 5 comes, oh, I better stop, because now I know. So that's what we're talking about. It is adhere to what you agreed to do. And this is where most people, they fall. They don't hold on to that boundary.
But the boundaries are for your safety,
That's
not,
right.
not, yeah. And it's not because he did you something naughty, like the parental, it's like, you've broken trust again, and I'm taking care of me. So two things, the online work group that I mentioned for betrayed partners, really helpful for that. Debbie McCrae also did a very good, like, these are the points for healthy boundaries. So there's a previously recorded webinar on that, specifically talking about that, and accountability, which I think goes hand in hand. If you've got boundaries and accountability, that really is helpful. So, okay, we did it. Thank you so much, Dr.
Now,
Eddie.
now
Yes.
in July, you're
Uh-huh.
changing the schedule, right?
Yes. And it's posted. So yes, I needed to flip flop some things, and Dr. Eddie was gracious. And so we flip flopped. And so, so watch the schedule. It's posted. So, we list who's going to be when.
Instead of the third week, I think I'm on the second week.
I think so
I
too,
don't know if
but
it's still Wednesday or not, but anyway, yeah.
it's always Wednesday. It's always
Okay.
Wednesday. So it's just
So it's the
which
12th
week.
then, probably the 12th.
Yeah.
But go
Yes.
look.
Yes. It will keep it accurate online. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, folks.